Tonight, mounting voter concerns as Democrats consider President Biden's political future.
Joe Biden is not going to take himself out of this race, nor should he.
We're having a serious conversation about what to do.
New CBS polling on how voters see the candidates now. The president with his family at Camp David after a weekend of fundraising. We'll have the latest. Also tonight, police in Utica, New York released new body cam video after the fatal police shooting of a 13-year-old boy.
I'm Michael George in Utica, where the community is demanding answers about the actions of the officers.
Powering up, Hurricane Beryl takes aim with life-threatening force. The race in the Caribbean to get ready. Plus, how weather could impact your 4th of July getaway. A record number of Americans taking to the roads and packing planes.
I'm Adam Yamaguchi at the Los Angeles International Airport, where they are bracing for potentially record-breaking crowds.
And later, a sweet discovery at George Washington's Mount Vernon home.
They seem pretty well preserved to you.
The cherries are incredible.
We take a trip back in time ahead of America's 248th birthday.
This is the CBS Weekend News from New York with Jerika Duncan.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us on this Sunday. We are following several developing stories happening right now, including Hurricane Beryl powering up the Caribbean to a dangerous Category 4 storm and severe weather that could affect millions of Americans traveling this holiday week. But we begin tonight with new concerns about President Biden's re-election campaign after his first debate for 2024. In a CBS News poll out today, it finds nearly 3/4 of registered voters now say Mr. Biden should not be running. CBS's Skylar Henry is at the White House and leads us off tonight. Skylar, good evening to you.
Hey, Jerika, good evening. It's not encouraging among Democrats either, as nearly half of those polled say he shouldn't remain the nominee. The Biden campaign says it's full steam ahead and is focused on reminding voters about the choice between him and former President Trump.
Democrats are hitting several swing states and the airwaves, telling their voter base to stay the course following President Biden's debate performance.
The president had a difficult night, just like every single one of us do. But I think that we know that when we get knocked down, we get back up.
However, Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin says rigorous talks within the party are taking place.
We're having a serious conversation about what to do. One thing I can tell you is that regardless of what President Biden decides, our party is going to be unified.
Democrats called the debate bad for both presumptive nominees, critical of Trump's lies and embellishments. Though just released CBS News polling shows 46% of registered Democratic voters think President Biden should not run, up 10% in 4 months.
And I would not be running again if I didn't believe with all my heart and soul I can do this job.
The Biden-Harris campaign says it's instead highlighting moments like the president on the trail in North Carolina, as they're characterizing the race as a binary choice. Republicans say it's an easy decision.
Everyone's talking about, should Joe Biden even stay in the race? That's never happened in our history. It was such a dominant performance by President Trump in this debate.
Tonight, President Biden is at Camp David with his family to celebrate the 4th. His campaign says the money keeps rolling in, raising $33 million since the debate.
Skylar, something else worth noting, tomorrow the Supreme Court, as you know, is set to issue that landmark decision on whether presidents are granted a degree of immunity from criminal prosecution. How do you think that will impact this 2024 race?
Yeah, how the justices respond could determine not only whether the criminal charges against the former president can stick, but also whether a trial against him could happen before the general election. If it came to that, Special Counsel Jack Smith could try to launch a trial in September or October at the earliest, weeks before voters head to the polls. Jerika.
All right, Skylar Henry Force at the White House. Thank you. Tonight, the New York State Attorney General's office is investigating the police shooting death of a 13-year-old boy in Utica, New York. Michael George is there as the boy's family and community are demanding answers. Michael.
Well, Jerika, right now, community members are meeting with the mayor here. There are also newly released body camera videos from the 3 officers involved, and we want to caution some viewers may find these disturbing. Utica police say they stopped this 13-year-old and another teen Friday night because they matched the description of robbery suspects.
Can I just pat you down and make sure you got no weapons on you?
The teen runs. Police say he pointed what looked like a gun at officers. It was later confirmed to be this pellet gun, police say designed to look like a Glock with a detachable magazine. One officer wrestles the teen to the ground and punches him. Another officer fires.
Oh my God! Yo, he just shot him!
The teen, identified as Nia Emwe, died at the hospital. This witness, who asked us to hide her identity, recorded the video of the incident. From what you witnessed, do you believe the officer was justified in shooting?
No, that's somebody's baby. And he didn't fight back. Even when y'all laid him on the ground and was punching on him and stuff, that boy didn't fight back.
The officers are on paid leave, pending an investigation to see if they followed protocol. After the shooting, officers performed chest compressions. Initially, there's confusion about who was shot and who fired.
I don't know if he shot me.
Check him, buddy, check him.
Is there any more shots?
Just one. There's just one shot. It was me.
Emwe was a refugee from Myanmar and a part of the Karen ethnic minority. At a vigil Saturday night, community members prayed for Emwe and demanded justice. And Karen community leaders are condemning the actions of Utica police, calling it excessive force. The New York Attorney General's office is investigating. Jerika?
Michael George and Utica, thank you. Overseas now to France, where voters turned out in big numbers to cast ballots in a snap parliamentary election with the far right leading in round one of voting. That's a rebuke to the centrist government of French President Emmanuel Macron. A final round of voting takes place next Sunday. Today in Israel, thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews took to the streets to protest conscription. Israel's Supreme Court recently ended their exemption ruling young religious men must enlist for military service. There's also new concern tonight about the conflict between Hamas and Israel expanding to include Hezbollah in Lebanon. CBS's MTS Tayeb is in Tel Aviv and has the very latest on that. MTS.
Jerika, good evening. Gaza's health ministry says around 40 Palestinians have been killed in a series of strikes over the past 24 hours as the Israeli military pushes ahead with a now days-long offensive against Hamas in a Gaza City neighborhood.
Israeli forces on the advance, seen here in Shujaiya in eastern Gaza City. 4 days ago, Israel sent reinforcements back into the area to target what's been described as Hamas gunmen and infrastructure above and below ground. At least 2 Israeli soldiers have been killed in the fighting. So too have several Palestinians. Some of the dead and injured have been taken here to one of the last semi-functioning hospitals in the central city of Deir al-Balah, where this young man didn't make it.
So this lung is normal lung.
Also in Deir al-Balah is Dr. Mohammed Sabeh, an ER doctor from California, now on his second humanitarian mission to the Gaza Strip, who we reached over a bad line.
And the volumes of patients that are coming in have increased dramatically compared to my prior mission. You can tell people are hungry, people are malnourished, just by looking at the skin on bones. This can be stopped now.
Earlier this week, we traveled with the U.S. military to the $230 million humanitarian pier off the coast of Gaza. Since becoming operational in mid-May, it's been plagued with problems, only functioning as it's meant to for around 18 days. In that time, over 8,000 metric tons of aid, or around 500 truckloads, have made it in. The same amount that would normally have gone into Gaza in a single day before October 7th.
And the temporary floating pier was yet again dismantled this weekend because of bad weather, Jerika, with a Pentagon spokesperson saying it's unclear when or if it will ever be reinstalled unless aid agencies can reach an agreement to distribute the supplies to those who so desperately need it.
MTS Tayeb, thank you for your reporting. To the Caribbean now, where Beryl, the first hurricane of the 2024 season, has intensified into a powerful and dangerous Category 4 storm. In Barbados, people there are getting ready for a direct hit. Let's check in with meteorologist Andrew Kozak from our CBS station in Philadelphia.
Yeah, Jerrica, we are witnessing history in the making as Hurricane Beryl becomes the first Category 4 hurricane to ever form the Atlantic in the month of June. So now we're watching it with max winds of 130 miles per hour making its way toward the Windward Islands. By the end of the upcoming week, it does have its eyes set on the Yucatan. Currently, as of tonight, no threat to any U.S. landfall. In the meantime, we are looking at travel conditions this week ahead of the July 4th holiday with dry conditions out west, storms in the Midwest, showers in the south, but beautiful up toward the northeast. Meantime, the storms will start to develop a little further east in the Ohio Valley as we head toward Wednesday. For the July 4th holiday, hot, especially in the south and the Midwest. We'll continue to see triple-digit heat. And for the upcoming weekend, we have dry conditions out west, stormy, though, in the east. Jerrica?
Andrew Kozak, thank you. As Andrew just mentioned, Americans this weekend are clearly on the go. AAA reports that nearly 72 million people are expected to be on the move this holiday weekend. CBS's Adam Yamaguchi is at LAX with more on some record-setting travel numbers there. Adam?
Good evening, Jerrica. So things are relatively quiet right now, but nearly 1 million people are expected here at LAX over the next few days as travelers make their holiday getaway.
The holiday travel rush is on at LAX and airports across the country, with long lines at TSA checkpoints and ticket counters.
It's annoying, but it's like we kind of expected that it was going to be this bad.
This summer's surge of travelers has TSA screening passengers in record numbers. 6 of their busiest days in its history have been this June. Record crowds are also expected this coming Wednesday, July 3rd. Air travel is up 7% from last 4th of July, helping to pack those planes, ticket prices that are about 18% lower than a year ago.
We got ours like, what, 2-3 months ago? Yeah. So I wouldn't say they were too bad.
AAA forecasts that most Americans, close to 90%, will travel by road this holiday. These trips cost Californians the most, with gas at an average of $4.80 a gallon. But overall, prices are down about 6 cents. Navigating traffic, weather, and airport crowds can be stressful, but for many, the final destination justifies the travel headaches.
Our trip out here was really nice and things weren't too crowded, and we spent a few days in LA at the beach, and now we're heading back home.
With so many traveling this week, AAA expects another mad rush next Sunday when all those millions of Americans head back to work. Jerrica?
We say it all the time. You just have to have patience. Adam Yamaguchi, thank you. Straight ahead on the CBS Weekend News, crowds celebrate Pride Month from coast to coast. And in Florida, forget the ice. Panther fans celebrate their first championship. We'll take you there. And later, the surprise find dug up at one of America's most historic places. Stay with us. Tonight, cities across the country wrapped up pride parades marking the end of Pride Month. This is New York City, where crowds gathered along Fifth Avenue to Greenwich Village. Some people could be seen standing on scaffolding and fire escapes for that perfect view. In San Francisco, spectators lined Market Street at what is one of the biggest LGBTQ celebrations in the world. Well, health officials are taking this time to warn some most at risk within the LGBT community of contracting Mpox, formerly known as monkeypox. Here's CBS's Dr. Celine Gounder.
Amid the music and the rainbows at Los Angeles Pride Month events, public health officials are armed with a serious message: stick it in and get vaccinated against Mpox.
Since Mpox is not really in the news right now, they don't necessarily feel a need.
Army Cachero and the public health outreach team at UCLA are concerned about a resurgence of Mpox, which broke out across the U.S. and other countries in 2022. Only 23% of those at risk nationwide are vaccinated. The virus causes severe rash and blistering, body aches and fever, and it can even be deadly. Jose Velasquez didn't need his arm twisted to roll up his sleeve. He remembers the fear and pain of being infected with Mpox in 2022.
I was actually hospitalized. I got to the point that like my lymph nodes were like really swollen. 1, 2, 3.
How was that?
I didn't feel it.
You didn't feel anything?
No, I feel a little relief.
Men who have sex with men and trans women are at highest risk, but there are barriers to getting the most vulnerable protected with the 2-dose vaccine.
Why are vaccination rates lower among people of color?
Just misinformation, lack of health care, lack of trust.
Across the country, public health officials are scrambling to prevent a repeat of the panic and confusion of the summer of 2022. Nick Diamond and his husband Kaletso Mafakane are public health advocates in New York.
I think it's really personal because it's our friends and our neighbors who are concerned about infection.
Their research found that many people at risk connect online and hook up in private homes, and that public health messaging must adapt.
That requires new thinking, that requires collaboration, and that requires urgency and speed. If we don't build that muscle, we are going to suffer more than we need to suffer.
Have you gotten your shot already?
In Los Angeles, I'm Dr. Celine Gounder for CBS News.
Still ahead on the CBS Weekend News, Florida hockey fans celebrate with Lord Stanley. Today in Fort Lauderdale, a victory lap for Florida Panthers fans. Thousands, as you see there, celebrated the team's first ever Stanley Cup win with a championship parade. The Panthers beat the Oilers 4-3. A surprise strike this weekend at Canada's second largest airline. WestJet canceled more than 400 flights, leaving almost 50,000 passengers scrambling, including right here in the U.S. Maintenance workers walked off the job Friday after rejecting the company's latest job offer. And Kevin Costner's new Western has bit the dust at the weekend box office. Costner put up millions of his own money to make Horizon an American Saga Chapter 1. But the 3-hour-long epic was a distant third, bringing in $11 million in its debut weekend. Pixar's Inside Out 2 took the top spot once again. Next on the CBS Weekend News, it's one of America's most storied historic places where something unexpected has been dug up. Finally tonight, as we prepare to celebrate 248 years of American independence, there's been a sweet discovery at the former home of one of the country's founding fathers. CBS's Scott McFarland in Mount Vernon, Virginia, shows us the unexpected and juicy find.
At the riverfront estate of America's founding father, the caretakers just found the mother lode behind this cellar door.
How rare is it to find something like this when you dig?
This is a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. It's extraordinarily rare.
Along the Potomac River at George Washington's Mount Vernon estate, archaeologists were working on an expansion of the historic site, which was a major plantation once tended by enslaved people. And their jaws dropped when they found these, nearly 3 dozen dirt-covered glass bottles, buried 250 years ago beneath Washington's home. Inside, well-preserved, still intact, cherries and berries from the Washington plantation, likely picked for baking or booze making, marinating for a quarter of a millennium in water inside the bottles, caked in clay.
And they seem pretty well preserved to you?
The cherries are incredible.
Mount Vernon director Doug Bradburn says the bottles were undisturbed, covered just years after their burial by flooring for a cellar during an expansion of the estate in the 1700s.
It's extraordinary to find these under the floor. I mean, this is under a paved floor in Washington's cellar. And so they were completely forgotten at the time, but there they are, laid out like a mini regiment.
These are real survivors, but it's also a testament to the way that they were preserved by the enslaved folks that did this entire process.
Archaeologist Jason Burrows says an enslaved woman named Doll oversaw the estate's kitchen.
We think of her as one of the first early American cooks.
Burrows says they dropped a scope camera into the bottles before using gentle suction devices and narrow spoons to remove the cherries.
These have been preserved for over 250 years. We certainly,
That's them right there.
We certainly didn't want to damage them now.
Just 15 miles outside the nation's capital, Washington's home has been a draw to hundreds of thousands of visitors each year who trek to see the artifacts of America's first president.
So Mount Vernon's been a pilgrimage site for Americans since George Washington was alive. These authentic things can really connect people to the past in a way that helps your imagination.
Operators of the historic site hope to preserve and put some of this on display by America's 250th birthday, July 4th, 2026. A fitting honor for the man who not only famously chopped down a cherry tree, but founded a nation. Scott McFarland, CBS News, Mount Vernon, Virginia.
That is the CBS Weekend News for this Sunday. I'm Jerika Duncan in New York. From all of us here, we thank you for watching. Have a good night.